So I filmed a video recently about where I sort of broke down an experience of acute pain that I had. And I was thinking about that video afterwards, and I thought it might be helpful to start to look at identity and how identity is formed and how it works in our life. And first of all, what I talk about in this video is my experience. I'm not saying that I am right or that I have the answers. This is really designed to be a conversation and an opening for your own inquiry if you are interested. And it's totally fine if you're not interested. You can just let this go. But to me, uh, this is the root of everything in our human experience. And so I'm going to be pointing to things in this conversation. And again, it's from my own experience, and you're going to have your own experience. And I just invite you to receive and then notice what resonates, let go of what doesn't, or be curious about what doesn't. My intention is that this video be helpful. And if you watch the other video, you know, I just tend to treat this as if we were live together. This is not going to be some polished version. This is just what's here now that wants to be transmitted. I'm Amber Krzys, by the way. I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. How I would describe it is I help people wake up to the truth of who they are. I've been on a recent real journey of that over the last couple of years. I've sort of like shot up out of a cannon. And so I'd like, this is just, I love this conversation. So let's talk about identity. Well, one of the things I think that made it prominent after the last video is there was a point when I was talking about the neck pain that I had where it felt like I was the pain, right? Like it was me. There was no separation. And that is how identity works, right? See, when we're born, we are pure consciousness. We don't have a name. We don't know where we have a body, right? Like we don't, there is no me self there. There is just presence. And then we learn I have a body, I have a name, I have parents, right? I'm in this world, I'm from this state, this cultural background, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like all of the conditioning starts to layer on, and we become, right, a separate sense of self is how I'll describe it. And that's part of the human experience, right? So identity is when we become completely attached to the belief that we hold about ourselves. And that is where suffering resides. So I'm going to give some examples. Let's say I am healthy. That's for me, like that's healthy. That's an identity that I am fit, right? I'm an athlete. Those are identities that I've held on to for most of my life. And so when the body isn't performing as it has in the past, it can really trigger a response because I have such strong attachment to that identification. I am successful, right? That's another one. And you can do this for yourself, figuring out like what are some identifications that you have. I am right, right, or I need to be right, because that's where I feel safe, right? That's one that I have definitely carried. I am not enough. I am better than. I am less than. I am a good person. Oh, that's a good one. I am a good person. See, so like there's nothing wrong with these. What we're doing right now is starting to talk about how these beliefs and identifications impact our our life. And we're often not even aware, we're not conscious to these things until until life provides, usually through suffering, a way to go, oh, maybe that's not who I am. And that doesn't always feel so good. And so we'll work with the good person one because I think that's a pretty common one. So I am a good person. So that becomes the reference point. Now, what's interesting is if we think about the reference point or the definition of good, good would be radically different per 8 billion people on the planet because everyone has their own idea of what good is. So right there, this is is just like built on your own interpretation, because we can't categorically look at the world and be like, that is good, that is bad, even though our mind and our ego likes to say we can, right? Because we have good and bad according to our own interpretation. But when it comes to agreement about what's good and bad, I mean, just look at what's happening on the planet. There's such disagreement about what's good and bad. And both sides think they're good. Right. So that's what's happening. So when we're holding on to this identity of a good person, and then we go out into the world to engage with people and activities, we're going to be, it's almost like how I like to think of it is our nervous system is sort of, your nervous system is what I would refer to as like an unconscious surveillance system. And the nervous system imprints get set in our early childhood. And so it's almost like we're out in the world. We are technically feeling beings first, thinking beings second. So our system is receiving energy. This is the way it works. Our system reads energy, right? And then sends the signal up into the brain, right? So really, it's like the right brain is taking in the sensory material around us. It passes it through that information. It passes it through the primal brain, or like it's the limbic system, which is sort of your survival center. And all it's looking for is this pain or is this pleasure? So then what happens is by the time that sensory information lands in your left brain, there's already a filter that's come in that says pain or pleasure. And then the left brain's job is to interpret, to make up stories. And so it's getting filtered information that says pain or pleasure, and then it's making up stories about that thing. And the whole system is about safety and having an experience of safety based on the past. So you could be out in the world and you could be, I don't know, at an event with your family, and your sister says something that feels like a threat to your good person identity. And then what happens anytime that the system perceives a threat to identity, we go into protect and defend mode, right? And that can look a lot of different ways. Protect and defend mode could look like blaming, right? Getting in an argument, fight, right? That's a nervous system response, fight response. So blaming the sister or getting in an argument with the sister. That could look like withdrawing completely from the conversation, right? Going into a different room. That could look like getting into overdrive of like if it's a good person, and like I'm thinking about me, if I were in that scenario, I might then go somewhere to prove how good of a person I am, right? So it might be like I might do more dishes, or I might clear the table, or I might do more cooking, right? Like something that shows I'm contributing, I'm good, right? That's another response to proving, to highlight, to holding that identity. Another possibility is like complete shutdown. So that might be like not only withdrawing and going into a different room, that could be completely leaving the environment and then not talking to your sister for a period of time. Right. So we have these reactions based on this identification, right? I'm a healthy person. I'm a successful person. And so we go out into the world, and because I'm a good person is how I feel safe. And so if something comes along to threaten that, it's like we got to guard up, because at first, right? Like the unconscious response is to guard up and protect, because my safety is what I know. So now is where it starts to get really interesting. Good person, healthy, successful, need to be right, not enough, enough. None of these identities are who you really are, right? If you've ever seen an infant, they're none of these things. they're just pure bliss, right? They're pure aliveness. They're pure response because they're responding to what's here. They're pure presence. And this is where it can get really, really tricky. To see what happens, what our system doesn't often recognize is the first response is protect, defend. And we just go there because this idea of like, I must be this. If I'm not this, I'm not okay. If I'm not seen as a good person, I'm not okay. I will die. Right. So it's protect, defend. But where protect, defend comes from is a deeper place inside, and that it there's a hurt, right? It's like there's a fear, there's something deeper going on that feels too big to meet. So we just go with the first response, which is protect, defend. And as you start to be more curious and inquire more about who am I? What is this that I'm experiencing right now? I have a lot of thoughts happening about my sister and this moment and how right I am and the righteousness. And oh, wow, I'm feeling a lot of energy moving in my body, right? It's like as we start to be curious about what's happening in the moment, that's when we start to connect with, I would say, the deeper fear or the deeper hurt that's really it's like the fear is who am I without this thing, right? The fear is I'm going to get hurt. The fear is I will die. The fear is I will be annihilated. And so all systems press against that and resist that. And it's like as we start to drop into the experience as it is, and we meet the fear, we meet the hurt, we meet the grief, we meet the anger, like we meet the experience. It's through meeting the experience as it is that we then can, it's like we see what's really going on. We start to see what's underneath this identification. And we start to touch into a place. I'm going to use the word that's bigger. That's not quite right, but it's like that's beyond these prison cells, right? These like this, I did them this way because identity, when we're really attached to it, is like a prison bar because we put ourselves in, we limit the unlimited. I'm a good person, so I must behave and act in this way. And if I don't, that means something about me. I'm a healthy person, so my body must behave and act in this way, or it means something about me, right? Etc. And when you, it's hard, this is where it gets really hard to talk about, because when you start to be curious about who you really are, when you start to be curious about, like, I bet right now, if you closed your eyes and I said to you, are you a body? And you slowed down and you checked, it would be easier to feel into, I have a body, but I am not my body. You know, I'm going to share a story. Our dog, I have two stories about this actually. My very first dog as an adult, Lucky, passed away in 2024. He was 16, and we were able to bring in a vet service to do an end of life ceremony with him with us. And what was so clear to me, it's like his body was there, but his spirit was gone. So Lucky that I knew, couldn't have been that form, right? Couldn't have been that body. It was more than that. And my husband, back in 2013, his mother passed away. And I wasn't there the moment that she transitioned, but I came soon after. And it was, again, so clear. we are not our body. It's like the body is there, but the life force that fuels it, that's gone. And so then it's like, well, what if I'm not a body, what am I? And I think that's something that you can inquire about. And this is where, like I was saying, it gets hard to talk about because all I can use are words to point to what I have felt and what I have discovered through this inquiry. But those words aren't the experience itself. And so the invitation is really as you start to meet and become curious and awake to who am I beyond my personality? Who am I beyond a successful person, an achieving person, a good person, an athlete? Who am I beyond these things? And you will find most likely that see it's how it starts is we're so identified with the personality that we don't even know we're reacting. We don't even know we have an identification as a good person. We just know what's right and wrong according to us, and then we act upon that. But then as you start to deepen in this process, it's like this starts to open up. There starts to be more space. There starts to be more room where you start to notice, oh, I'm upset. Okay, what is this? Right? It's like rather than like going straight into the upset and letting it consume you and run you, there starts to be a space between the experience you're having and the noticing of the experience that you're having. And the more you stay in that inquiry of noticing, it's like that's what helps to build the capacity. This opening is really what when I talk about building the capacity, like building your safety capacity to meet more of your experience, that's what I'm talking about. It's like the more you are able to drop into the now and meet your experience as it is right now, it's like the more you start to see the prison bars and the more you start to see, right? It's like there's no doorway or there's no locked cell, right? There's just an open doorway. So it's like, you're like, oh, I've been over here in a prison bar and I can just walk right out. And that walking right out, how I would describe it's like that's the experience of presence. That's the experience of oneness, of love, of consciousness. You know, that movie, The Matrix, is really what's present here because the 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 people living within the matrix don't know that they're living within the matrix until they start to wake up and see it, right? Until it's like Neo thought this was life, right? This unconscious existence. And then he went through this journey of waking up, which by the way, I think the journey of waking up, there's no arrival, right? It's not like we're not going to have identity. We do, right? Part of the human experience is we're human and divine, right? But then our minds like to make like a sum total, like an end. There's got to be a win, a victory, an arrival. But no, you're still going to have thoughts. You're still going to have reactions. You're still going to have feelings because that's this game of being human. But there is a distinction. See, as you start, this is my experience, as I'll say it this way, as I have become more curious about this and how this works, I have connected. It's not necessarily that's it's fine. It's not the best word to describe it, but it's like I've touched into, I've connected with this place that's beyond all of this. It's like this place that holds this prison and everything else. I'm going to draw just like imagine like a big heart. This is probably not the best, but it's like this big heart that encompasses everything, everyone, like every experience. And this is where true safety lives. This is where true freedom lives. This is where peace resides. This is happiness, lasting happiness. What happens is we're so attached to this that we've just been fueling, right? Like your personality, the way the ego works, the ego needs constant food. Because see, the ego personality, it doesn't exist, right? We've already talked about this. This idea of like the body, right? The spirit isn't the body. It's gone, right? And personality is sort of within that. It's like that personality goes, but yet there's this energy that doesn't die. See, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought of where I was going with all of that. Oh, the personality. So because of that, see, the ego needs constant feeding. The personality needs constant feeding, and feeding in this case is attention. Attention, attention, attention. We have been trained to pour attention here. We haven't been trained to turn our attention beyond this. And that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. This is what I mean by unconscious to conscious. It's an unfolding, it's a journey. We can't force ourselves into it. Life just sort of opens us to that when it's time to open us to that. Because this is the other thing, there is an intelligence in life. There are 30 to 40 trillion cells in our bodies that we are not in control of, that are communicating with each other and coordinating with each other all the time, and are doing so beautifully to create health for us. That's an intelligence. There's an intelligence that runs the tides in the ocean. There's an intelligence that shows the birds when it's time to migrate. There's an intelligence to life itself, and we are a part of that. And so we don't have to force, we don't have to make, awakening happen. We can just slow down and be curious and let things be revealed. And the more we start to turn our attention and feed this experience, the easier it is to see this as false. I was reading a book recently. I was in a book club with Dr. Amy Johnson, and the book is by Sailor Bob Adams. It's called "What's Wrong with Right Now If You Don't Think About It." Now, it's sort of an advanced book. I'm not going to lie. Like your brain will probably be like, "What is happening?" If you check that out. Just forewarning, or if you can explore it and see if it's a good fit for you. Your own intelligence will guide you there. But I'm bringing that up because there was something that he said that I loved, which was, if you look at the sky from this vantage point, it's blue. It looks blue. But if you're in an airplane, right? If you're in the sky, in the airplane, and you look out the window, the sky isn't blue. Now, both can be true. But where I'm going with this is, from this vantage point, on my feet on the earth, looking up at the sky, it looks blue. But I can know in the back of my mind, that's not really true. So it's like this, the more I drop into this experience of presence, the more I feel myself as awareness itself, the easier it is to see without any effort. Oh, this isn't true, right? The sky looks blue. That's a true statement. This looks true. I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm amber. That looks true, but it's not the whole truth. So instead of holding so tight to that identity, right, the attachment to that, see, it's like, can you see how that's where the pain is? Versus if, as we wake up to more of our wholeness, there's room for all of those things. And it's like we're seated more within the true self. Okay, that is my exploration of this identity piece today. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to say or share. The idea is not that you will no longer be you. The idea is not that you will somehow be like your infant self. At least that's not my understanding at this time. Who knows where I'll be years from now? But my understanding is this is about the fullness of the human experience, not just the tightness of the human experience, but the fullness of the human experience. It's the both and, right? Making room for our conditioning, making room for our feelings, making room for our behaviors, our coping strategies, our judgments, our criticisms, letting them be held inside of this place of love, which by the way, they are. There's none of us exist outside of existence, right? None of us exist outside of oneness. We just, the mind just thinks we do. And the experience, again, because attention has gone more narrow, the experience can be ripe with suffering. But the good news, this is my take on it, pain is feedback. Suffering is feedback, psychological, emotional suffering, even physical suffering to some extent, like I shared about in my last video, can be feedback. It can be a way that the intelligence of life is pointing you to inquire within, to be more curious, to open your heart to whatever the experience is in the moment. And I mean, truly, if I were to simplify this, not the identity conversation, because I don't really know how to simplify it, but either we're in a state of a closed heart or an open heart. When we're turning our attention towards the present or towards presence, and we're experiencing existence itself, we're in our fullest open heart. When when our attention is more narrow on our identity, we're in a closed heart. And both are beautiful. And there's usually feedback when we close off because, right, like life is inviting us to wake up. Life is inviting us to wake up to the truth of who we are. Okay, so this is my video on deeper exploration of identity. If you have questions about it, if something stirred inside of you, if there was an insight, I would really love to hear from you. This is my first time really sort of breaking it down in this way. So yeah, you can send me an email at hello@amberkrzys.com. Hello@amberkrzys.com. Thanks for making it to the end. I hope that this was helpful.